Runners Only with Dom Harvey.
Hey team, welcome to the podcast. As you can see from the banner behind me, we're in Boston for the Boston Marathon 2023, and very special guest on today's podcast, Ryan Hall, the fastest American runner ever. Fastest half marathon time under 1 hour, and fourth place at the Boston Marathon in 2011 in under 2 hours and 5 minutes. This is a phenomenal guest for the show, and I'm thrilled to bring you Ryan Hall on Runners Only with Dom Harvey from Boston. Runners Only with Dom Harvey and running royalty, Ryan Hall. G'day, mate.
Hey, how you doing, Dom?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for meeting up with us today in Boston. This is like your home ground in a way, I guess.
Every weekend here in Boston is just special. You know, if people haven't had a chance to be out here, it's just like, it's probably the only place you go to, the only weekend you go to where like runners really do feel like rock stars, you know, like everyone knows everyone, and it's just a big party. You know, the excitement in the city and stuff is just contagious. It's really fun. Yeah. And today of all days, I need to extend an extra thanks to you for meeting up with me, because it's your wife who you coach as well, Sarah Hall. It's her 40th birthday. Yep, today she's 40, so she's upstairs getting a massage right now, so you know, she's not missing me too much.
How good. Actually, I got her a little present. Mum, do you want to bring those flowers in? I've got some flowers to pass on.
Thank you. That was very nice of you.
Pass on to your wife, just for giving you an hour out on her special day.
Thank you very much.
So we're doing this on a Saturday afternoon. So we're 2 days away from this year's Boston Marathon, where she's racing. So how does the next couple of days look like for Sarah Hall and her coach Ryan Hall?
Yeah, I mean, try and just lay low as much as you can. You know, I mean, obviously you're here to support the race, and they want you to do some events to promote the race. You know, so she'll be doing a little bit of that, but they try to do a lot of that stuff up front. So she already did all her press stuff. So she'll just be laying low, eating a lot, and honestly, we always say it's just trying to not go crazy the last couple of days. It's really easy to get really far in your head, so almost trying to not think about it until you get out to the start line, start warming up, and you start to engage and but you don't want to be like a warrior trapped in your room. You want to wait to become a warrior until you get out to that start line. So right now it's all about just like low positive.
Yeah, so your role as a coach in these final hours before the run, does it become like a counselor, a therapist, a mentor? What is it?
Honestly, a lot of it's just reminding your athletes of what they've done, who they are, reminding them to trust themselves. Like, we were just out on the riverfront here doing a run together, and I was biking next to her, and I was talking to her about different scenarios that could play out, what she might be nervous about. And I was just like, listen, you just need to trust yourself, you know, because the thing is, it feels good. Having a race plan brings security, right? Because it's real firm. You're like, this is what I'm going to do. This is exactly how it's going to play out. But that is not life. And that is not the best way to go into a race, in my opinion. The best way to go in a race is completely open-minded and know how you're going to react in a lot of different situations that could present themselves. But really, like, not having a firm plan in your mind is advantageous from a racing perspective, but it's very unsettling for an athlete to be like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what I'm going to do. But that's where you got to just fall back and be like, I trust myself. I know I'm going to make the right decision at the right time. I have a good head on my shoulders. And she does. She's 40 years old. She knows what she's doing. Yeah. So a lot of it's just like reminding her, you're in really good shape. You're ready for this race. Trust your instincts out there. Don't follow any moves that you shouldn't be following. And that's probably the hardest thing for pros, you know, because a lot of these moves that will be made out there on Monday, like, she could cover them, and maybe she will cover them, but maybe not. You know, it's not always the wisest thing to go with every single move, especially when you're on a course like Boston, where there's lots of ups and downs in the course. Sometimes, like when I ran this course and ran my best races, I wasn't with the main group the whole time. Like, it kind of yo-yoed. Sometimes I was like, nope, that one's too hot for me. I'm just give them a little bit of space, and maybe I'm going to keep my eyes up. Hopefully I'll catch them, you know, a mile down the road. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll be running by myself for the rest of the race. But that's where it's just like, you got to fall back on like what is best for you. Our competitors are supposed to draw out our best stuff out of us. But ultimately, like, you have to run your own plan with your own mind, with your own giftedness in your own way as well.
And what were you like when you were running? Like on the night before a run or the morning of a run, were you like a bundle of nerves? Were you just like excited and frothing about getting into it?
I was mainly trying to like not think about it. I think I like to like just watch funny movies, watch inspiring movies, hang out with family and friends, try and laugh as much as I can. I think that's probably the best recipe for athletes the day before a race, is just try to like have fun.
Distraction.
Just distraction. Like, you don't want to be thinking about it a lot. Like, you're just going to burn up all this energy and be like a caged animal. And then when the time comes, you're already so emotionally drained. So it's like, you're not only like preparing yourself physically by eating a whole bunch of food, which is hard to do when you're really nervous and you got to just force down these calories and you don't feel like it. But like, when I get to 21 miles, I'm going to be glad I ate this extra piece of bread right now. But so there's the physical component, but there's also very much the emotional component that you have to be aware of as well. Being like, I need to store up my emotional energy. And so the days before, I need to just be real chill, real lighthearted, real fun.
Yeah, that's amazing. All right. This is your podcast, not your wife's podcast. So we'll wind it right back. So your dad was a runner growing up, eh? Not a great runner, but like a sub 3 hour runner?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
So a good weekend warrior.
Yeah.
What was his PB?
I don't think he ever broke 3. I think
Oh,
he
did
was
he not?
I think he was always like right on the cusp, never did it. He was more into baseball, basketball, and football. He's also a little bit of a bigger guy. Like, my mom was smaller, more like built like a runner. My dad was a big kind of strong baseball player kind of guy. So I think I got more of like my mom's genetic side. So he always kind of struggled with the running a little bit, but he had a big engine as well. But yeah, I don't think he ever broke 3.
Wow. So you... What made you decide to get into it? Because I read in your book, you just said to him, you loved team sport.
Yep.
And then one weekend you said to your dad, I want to do this 15 mile run around a lake.
Yeah, exactly.
How old were you then?
Yeah, I was 13 years old then and hated to run. And I always say, like, running is a very difficult sport to get into because it's the least amount of fun at the beginning. Usually the things that grab kids, are the things that are immediately fun. You go do it one time, you're like, oh, that was so fun, I want to go do that again. Running's not like that. Usually, like, you go on your first run, you're like, dude, that freaking hurt and everything's sore and that wasn't fun. I had to stop and walk. You're not just like floating along. And that was me. Like, I did this 15-mile run with my dad. I wasn't floating through it. Like, it was a long, hard, painful, not necessarily, it was enjoyable in the sense of accomplishment I felt when I finished it, and I felt like I overcame a big challenge, but not like enjoyable sensations that I was feeling during that 4-hour run or however long it took me to do that initial run around the lake.
So what I'm hearing is that you didn't really have natural talent. It was more hard work. You must have some natural talent, obviously, but it's more hard work that got you to where you got to?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I definitely have a big engine. All my little brother's racing on Monday as well, just debuted in his first marathon. He's 35. He just ran his first marathon, ran 2:12. So, all of us just have naturally big engines for sure, without a doubt. So there is a level of talent there, but I really don't feel like I'm the most talented marathoner, half marathoner that America has ever had. Without a doubt, not even close. When I look at the guys who are super talented, I look at the guys who are really, really quick on the track over 5,000, 10,000 meters, Grant Fisher, guys like that. You're like, man, dude, if I could have run like 12:50 for 5,000, what could I have done in a marathon? Because I was a 13:16 guy, which...
sluggish.
Yeah, just a hobby jogger out there. But
God, you'd win just about any park run in the world.
That's the great thing about running, though, is you can get so much out of yourself. You do have to have a certain measure of talent, without a doubt. But you can get a heck of a long ways just off a lot of hard work. And so that's where, like, not to jump into a whole different subject, but when people talk about doping in our sport and guys who are cheating, I'm like, listen, I wasn't the most talented guy. I wasn't taking anything, and I ran 59 minutes for a half in shoes you could bend in half, right? And now you got guys in shoes that are running a minute. The shoe alone is taking a minute off at times in half marathons. And if they're significantly more talented than I was and they trained as hard as I was, of course they should be running way faster than I was ever running, you know? So that's why, like, when people just accuse people of doping based off performance, I'm like, I never jump to that conclusion, just because I know myself and I know my level of talent. And I'm like, there's guys out there who just have a whole lot more of what I had. And so it's, it's possible to run some pretty insane times.
What are you, since you brought it up, what are your thoughts about the shoes now? I dropped a couple of $100 on a pair of Nike Vaporflies, whatever they are, yesterday, and I had a run of them this morning, and they're incredible.
It was your first run?
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're on the moon a little bit?
Bro, phenomenal. Felt like I was like bouncing.
Yeah, the shoes they're amazing. They're super fun. And for like now, so I raced at 137 pounds. I'm 5'10". Now I'm 177 pounds, and being heavier in that shoe, you get even more out of it. So like you run different in those shoes, right? So like in the shoes I was in, really minimal, really bendy, not a lot of cushion, just eats your legs up on courses like Boston. Your quads are just freaking gone at mile like 16, you know, and you have to go the rest of the way. But these shoes, and I run in super shoes all the time because I love them. They feel amazing. But you run totally different. In the shoes I was in, it's more like you're a cheetah pulling the ground, trying to be real light on your feet, right? And now in these super shoes with the cushion and the plate combined, it's totally different game. Now it's load the ground as hard as you can. Slam your leg into the ground as hard as you can, and you're going to get a huge amount of return out of the shoe, out of the ground, and it's going to propel you forward really quick. So it's fun for me. Like, I'll strap on those shoes and I'll run a mile in like under 5 minutes when I'm not even in that good a shape and just have no business running that fast. But I can just load that shoe up, and it can beat up your lower leg. So there's the injury component. So, I wouldn't suggest anyone just get a pair and do every single run in them. Like, I'm actually trying to get my athletes to use them less in training and still race in them.
Right.
Because there is quite a few like lower leg injuries that are also popping up as a result of those. So you got to be careful in training, but they're so fun.
Yeah.
They're so fun.
Now, this is completely hypothetical, but your time's the American record for the half marathon, which is 59:43. 59:43, and the marathon, which is 2:04:50.
I ran 2:04:50. Oh man, 58, 56?
Yeah.
One of those.
How much quicker do you think you could have gone with the current shoes? Hypothetical, of course, but...
Yeah, it's all hypothetical, right? And I never raced in them when I was a elite runner. So actually, I asked Dathan Ritzenheim, who I competed with, that question, because he ran in the shoes we were in, and he ran in the super shoes in both those. I was like, dude, how big of a difference is it? Like, what do you think? You ran in both of them. He's like, I think it's easy 1 minute in the half, 2 minutes in a marathon. So
2 to 3 seconds a kilometer at the pace you're running. That's insane.
Oh, that is night and day different. I mean, getting 1 minute quicker, going from 59 minutes to 58 minutes that's a lifetime of work to get that much of improvement. So they really did. They changed the scene completely.
So you start running with your dad, then you give up team sports, which in your book it sounds like it was a hard thing to do. You're basically leaving your mates behind and for a solo sport. Then when did you realize you were good? You started doing cross country and shorter stuff, right?
Yeah, what's funny is I thought I was really good because I grew up in Big Bear Lake, which is a tiny little mountain town in Southern California. We get snow. I lived like a mile away from ski resort, so I grew up like skiing, snowboard, and all that. But I wasn't exposed to running at all. There was no track team at my high school. The only tracks we had in town were like filled with weeds and stuff. No one ran, so I didn't even know what a good time was. We didn't have social media, all this stuff now.
Strava.
Yeah, so like I ran a mile. My first mile ever in middle school was during PE gym class, and I ran like 5:52. I thought that was like blazing fast. I was like, that is so fast. And little did I know that my wife Sarah, at that same age, she was running under 5 minutes for a mile. If we would have grown up in the same hometown, I would have never ran because I would have been like, this girl's a minute quicker than me. So it's funny how like. It's all relative, right? Like my daughter was just asking me this the other day. She's like, how good am I at the 400 meters? She just ran like 67 for a 400. She's like, how good is that? And I couldn't even answer the question. I was like, it all depends who you compare yourself to. Like,
Yeah,
what
for
is
sure.
good,
For sure. How old is she?
She's in ninth grade right now. And
What's that? What age is that?
so she's 15.
15.
Yeah.
Geez, 67 for 15 sounds pretty good.
It's not
But yeah,
good.
it's who you
Again,
can-
it's like, are you comparing yourself to like a world-class sprinter or to like your friends in class, you know?
So you do cross country and shorter stuff for a while. Why the transition to marathon?
Yeah, I never thought I'd run a marathon. It was really as a result of going over to Europe and getting my butt kicked on the track. I remember I was racing against Kenenisa Bekele and Craig Mottram and those guys, and we were in London doing a 5K on the track, and those guys just destroyed me. I was nowhere even near the race. I was watching the race on the big screen, running down the backstretch, you know? And I remember just being so frustrated after that race because I really felt like I'd been given a gift to run with the best guys in the world, and here I was like not even close to being in the race, and I was running pretty well for me at that time, over 5,000. You know, that was a year after I ran 13:16. So it was during that time I was like, I gotta figure out what I'm best at. Like I've been very close-minded. I was always like, I'm gonna be a 1,500 guy. Like I'm gonna be a miler. No one's gonna tell me I'm not fast enough or whatever. And then finally I opened up to longer races, went to the 5K, was much more successful. I mean, I should have known from my training. Like when I was in high school, 18 years old, I could run 10 miles under 5-minute pace. And that was very telling that threshold strength comes very natural to me, you know, but I wanted to do the short, fast stuff. And it was good to work on that. Like kids should be working on their speed because your speed over 1,500 meters, if you're a marathoner, that's going to determine how high your ceiling is. How good you can get in this sport is going to be determined by your 1,500 meters speed. I really believe that. Look at a guy like Kipchoge. We ran in the world championships together in Finland. He was like third in the world and running, you know, I don't even know what his PR was at that time, but running under 13 or whatever. And just look at his ceiling now, you know?
Well, it's funny that you bring it up that you know, well, I was going to say sucked, but no, just weren't as successful as what you wanted to be in the 5,000 because it's the same sort of path with Kipchoge, isn't it? Because he medalled at a couple of Olympics, and then for the third Olympic campaign, didn't even make the Kenyan squad.
Yeah.
That's when he started to panic, and that's when Patrick Sang, his coach, said, "No, why don't you try longer?"
Yeah, just start moving up. But
see what happens, because Mo Farah as well, he did very well at 5 and 10, and then it's like, when you start to drop off the speed there, is it like, well, there's always a marathon?
Yeah, and that's the natural progression of the athlete, you know?
Yeah.
It's like when you can no longer compete with the best guys in the world, the shorter stuff, you start moving up, but you still have that speed in your system, you know? So that's critical. You got even with just like with Run Free Training, the athletes that we work with, we're working on 1,500 meter mile speed with those athletes, and they don't have to race it, but they need to work on it. And that's why you need a coach to make you do that stuff. Because when you're 40, 50, 60 years old, you don't want to go out to the track or go to a hill and do like 200-meter repeats, you know, because that stuff generally doesn't feel great to do for a marathon runner. But I would argue that doing what you don't feel like doing is probably the most important work you need to be doing. But you got to have like someone there who's forcing you to do it. Yeah.
So when you were at your peak of marathon training, what did a week look like for you?
So I was training twice a day, most days, except for the long run day.
Like twice as in running, or like a run in a gym?
Yeah, twice running. So we'd run, anywhere between 50 minutes to 75 minutes in the morning if we're just doing an easy run. And then a hard session like 2 to 3 times a week with a long run in there as well. And just tired all the time, to be honest with you. Like you're training right on the line of what your body can handle, you know? So I remember if I missed a nap, I was in a bad mood. Like my schedule was like train in the morning, come back, maybe stretch, roll, take care of stuff around the house, whatever I need to do for a couple hours, lunch, 2-hour nap, get up, run again, go to the gym routine, come home starving, eat a quick dinner, go to bed early. And then being a professional athlete is not a glamorous life, or at least a professional runner. Yeah. It's very monotonous. You're doing the same thing over and over again, and your life has to be really simple. Like I didn't have energy for much else outside of running and training and sleeping. So it's a big sacrifice. You watch these athletes out here on Monday, and they make it look like so much fun and so glamorous and everyone's going crazy. And it's super fun, but it's also a big sacrifice for these guys, disappearing to training camp, some of them for 3 months, not seeing their family and just eat, sleep, train. That's it. But that's what it takes to compete now at this level.
Yeah, well, I suppose like the marathon week is fun. It's a week of celebration and catching up with people and, just enjoying the occasion. But what everyone doesn't see is the stuff that goes on in the shadows months and months before. And what you described to me before and the way you described it, it sounds pretty bloody bleak. But did you enjoy it at the time?
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't going out in high school and going to parties. I hated dances. Like, I didn't gravitate towards being really social. Like, I always just kind of liked being home. So for like a homebody type person, it's a really good lifestyle. But even for my wife, who's not a homebody person, she likes to be out and doing stuff. It is gratifying because you are investing all of yourself in something. And I think no matter what it is, anytime you're like, I'm going to go after this thing as hard as I can. I'm going to see what I can do. It doesn't even matter what the thing is. Anytime you're that focused on trying to do something, it's a pretty gratifying thing to pursue it with that kind of passion, that kind of drive, that kind of like, let's go find out and see what I can do here. It's fun.
Yeah, well, for me and anyone else that has followed your journey since running on Instagram, you just seem like a dude that hyperfixates on whatever it is you're doing.
Oh, it's very true. I am very in or out. That's why when there was no gradual retirement for me, like some people just kind of they keep racing. You don't even know all of a sudden they're not there anymore. They just kind of drift out of the sport. I was like, when I'm done, I'm done. I'm on to the next. But actually it's funny because I got into lifting and saw how far I could take that over about 6 years, which was super fun because for me this is also like science and an experiment of one. Like my gym, my garage in my house, my gym, I call it my lab because every time I go in there I'm trying something new, I'm learning something, and I've learned so much through sports about myself, about my body, but also about how to work with my athletes now. Like my athletes, they're directly benefiting from my science experiments that I'm holding on myself. And I'm careful not to be like they're going to react the same way I react, but you can take principles that you learn on yourself and try it out with other people, and oftentimes those principles also work. So
I want to get into the whole weightlifting stuff. We'll get there in time, but it's worth bringing up. There's a photo of you online, and honestly, it looks like your head has been photoshopped onto some other dude's body. It's just. Do you know the photo I'm talking about? There's one in particular. I think it was in Men's Journal or Men's Health or something, and it's like that can't be his actual rig. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Stacked.
Well, it's just fun to see. I did something I was naturally talented at, to a measure. And then to now do something, though, where I'm not talented at it. And it's just it's all hard work. I have the total wrong genetics to really be moving a lot of weight or to put on muscle. It's a real challenge. It's right now, I'm doing this interview, I got 50 grams of protein in here that I'm going to drink during the interview. It's nutrition, sleep, everything has to be dialed, right? And it's all the hard work that I did in running, I'm doing it the same way, but now just on a hobby of lifting level. But everything I learned in running, it helps with the next season,
Okay, so just back to the running for a bit. So the Boston Marathon 2011, would you say that's the run of your life, the performance of your life? Is it the most memorable when you look back from where you are now?
Well, here's the thing. It was what it was, right? And we had a tailwind that day. It was the perfect day to run.
Listen, I just want to stop you there before you go too far on this humble act.
No, but you didn't.
2011 is also the year I ran the Boston Marathon. Same tailwind. I managed to do 3 hours 19, so let's not give that tailwind too much credit.
Yeah, but it definitely helped. You got to mention it.
For sure.
But I will say this, though. How I felt leading up to that race, I'd never felt that good before.
Wait, what do you mean? Because in your book you talk about the a warm-up event, a half marathon in New York, and there's a saying in New Zealand, shat the bed. I don't know if that's a thing in America, but you shat the bed.
Oh, I felt terrible. Yeah. I had no idea why I felt so bad.
But what happened in that half marathon, that lead-up race?
I have no idea. I couldn't tell you.
How long did it take you to finish?
Felt terrible. I don't even know. Never looked at my time. It was probably 64, 65 minutes.
Terrible.
Yeah. I mean, for me, that's 5 minutes off my PR. Yeah. And I thought I was in PR shape. My workouts have been going super well. But you know what happened is I did that race, and then something just went off, a switch in me. And we did change our environment, too. We went back to Stanford. I was training at sea level. I had been in Flagstaff training up there at altitude. We dropped down to sea level, and I did change the way I was training. It was kind of like one of those deals where I had a really bad race, and I was like, screw it. I was like, I'm just going to see what happens. I'm just going to go run as hard as I can, hard all the time. So I would be going out for easy runs, running 5:30, 5:20 pace.
Yeah.
The day before the Boston Marathon, did 30 minutes. I was running under 5:30 pace and just feeling like $1,000,000. So that kind of feeling is more what I base, like, that was probably like, yeah, my best stuff I ever had based on how I was feeling leading up to the race, regardless. So it's funny, like, I just bombed a race. No one's even thinking about me, but in my head, I was licking my chops. I was like, I feel ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then I saw there was a tailwind. And I talked to Bill Rogers before the race, and he was like, you get this like once every 10 years. And so I was like, there's going to be a tailwind this year. I was like, I'm not letting 1 mile go by without pressing. I was like, I'm going to press the entire way, which is why I went straight to the front and just led as long as I could. And, that's how that race unfolded.
How good. Hang on 1 second. Sorry, we good?
We need to wrap it up. They need to use this room
Right.
for a function. There was no way. There wasn't a reserve. There was nobody. The hotel's not aware. Nobody's aware of it. I don't mean to be rude.
Okay.
We're just trying to get it.
No, that's fine. Can we move elsewhere?
You can't be here, but let me see if we can go our way, and I'll ask the hotel if there's any other accommodations.
So 2011. Talk us through that day from start to finish. So the night before the Boston Marathon, you're feeling good? You're feeling relaxed?
Yeah. Like, in my mind, it's like all systems go, and I'm just looking at the weather and being like, let's see what happens out there tomorrow. I'm going to just, and going to the front of a race for me is nothing new. Like, I always loved going to the front. I always felt most comfortable in the front. I think that's something for people to keep in mind. A lot of people try and tell you how you should run. I like to ask my athletes, how are you excited to run? Because that's how you're going to run your best, So that's the primary thing. I love being in the front. So, yeah, I was standing on the starting line at Hopkinton, just staring at the flag, and it's just blowing the direction we're going. You know how it was out there. It was just perfect. And so, gun fired, and then off we went.
And you're feeling good? You're feeling good from the outset?
Oh, yeah. I can tell how I'm feeling so quick on things. And sometimes I am wrong, but like, I can literally tell you how this lift is going to go that I'm about to do by just pick up a 45-pound plate, feel how it feels in my hands, Same thing with run. It's like some days you just warm up and you just feel that bounce in your step, It's like, whoa, dang, I feel good today. And those are fun days.
So you start running, you got the tailwind, you're feeling good. Obviously, you're still in agony though. Like you're fully sending it.
Yep. Yeah. And I think the thing is, you just can't second guess yourself when you're doing that. Like, once you commit, and for me, it's all about like figuring out how I'm feeling and running according to feeling more than time. Because you can freak yourself out by looking at your watch. I think our first mile was like 4:35 or something like that. And so you can look at that and be like, oh, dang, I'm running way too fast. What'd I do? I just messed up. But really, like, I just go back to the sensation, being like, if I was in training, I was running this effort level, could I maintain this for a 15-mile threshold? The answer is yes. You keep taking it. Because generally speaking for us, like, whatever you can do for a 15-mile threshold in training, in the context of big training and being tired, you can generally do that on marathon day.
Yeah, and you finished fourth in that race.
Yeah, so I was fourth place, the fourth fastest person to ever run the Boston Marathon course, and fourth place. But you know what? It's funny. You would think that I would be like mad about that, right? It's like, what do I have to do to win this race?
Yeah, I wanted to know if it was sort of with mixed emotions, like you're stoked with your time, but also not even a podium finish.
No, it wasn't mixed emotions at all. It was just pure bliss. I came across that finish line, and I was like, yeah, I was so stoked, just yelling, screaming, like so happy. And yeah, like, of course, it would have been fun to win that race, but I was a part of a historic race. This race has been run at that time over 120 years when no one had ever run that fast on that course with a tailwind or in any conditions, and I got to play a role in that, and I'll take that over winning the Boston Marathon every day.
When did you realize you were on track for a sub 205? Because part of me wonders why you didn't take the foot off the throttle. Like, you would have still had an American record maybe, you would have had a Ryan Hall personal best, it wouldn't have changed the placing at all.
You're right, I know. I had that temptation. Honestly, what was happening is I saw our half split, which was like 61:48 or something. It was so fast that the race director, he radioed his guys like, hey, you guys messed up the clock. It said they came through in 61:48. They're like, no, that's right. And so, like, I was surprised too. Everyone was shocked we were running that fast, right? But after that point, I was just looking at my watch. I was like, okay, the goal is to see how much I can go under 5-minute pace, for the next mile. And every mile would roll by, I'd be just clicking off just under 5, 4:48 pace, whatever. And then it was with a mile to go. I'm glad they put a clock with a mile to go here, because I looked at the clock and I was right at 2 hours. And so I was like, okay, either I can try and like push down and really like hammer this last mile and go under 205, or I can enjoy myself, ease off the throttle a little bit. And yeah, it's not going to change the place. Still a really good time, still really fast. But I was like, you only get one shot at this. It's, once every 10 years, you can get this kind of conditions. Like, I'm going to make the most of this. So I just gritted my teeth that last mile, ran all the way to the finish line, and just squeaked under 205.
Oh, that is so cool. Yeah. That's amazing. And then after that, it seemed like you had like a horrible period for like maybe a couple of years where you were entered in races and then, you wouldn't turn up or you'd be injured or... Like talk us through that period. That must have been miserable.
Yeah, it's tough, and it's kind of something all runners go through, though. At least pro runners go through this, right? Where it's that period of things breaking down, your body slowing down. And it was a 4-year period. It started with plantar fasciitis, training for the Olympic trials. And there's nothing I could do about that one. I just had to keep training through it. You have to do the Olympic trials if you can go to the Olympic Games. Yeah. So I just trained through it, and it hurt the whole time, and it hurt during the race, and it hurt after the race for months and months. And there was a slight compensation in my stride, and it just threw off the whole system. So that's why it's so important for runners. It's like, don't just be okay with your stride being off, because it's going to cause other problems down the line. So that started like a 4-year chain of injuries for me, dropping out of races, not getting to races. Then this whole fatigue thing set in, and that's when I knew it was over. Looking back over a 4-year period of time, being like, my body is clearly telling me it's got nothing left to give to me, and now it's time for me to give back to my body and get into the weights.
Yeah, so it was kind of like your body shutting down, really, and saying no more. We can't. So your mind was still willing. You still had this mind of a savage, but your body was just like shutting down on you. That must have been like mentally just a grueling period of your life.
Yeah, it was. It was a real challenge, But what I'm glad that I navigated it as well as I could have at that time with the information that I had at the time, Like, I tried everything I could to get myself out of these holes. I shifted my nutrition. I tried different training plans, different everything, right, to try and turn my body around. I was getting blood tests done. And funny enough, like, nothing was coming up in my blood that was showing there was, like, some big problem I was having. It was just, like, my body was just not responding to anything I was doing from a training perspective. So that's kind of how it's like, dude, I've tried everything. I can't turn the ship around. It's just clearly like getting worse and worse. And so I figured it was time to hang it up and move on to the next thing. Now, going back, if I could do it all over again, I would have probably just taken and it's funny, my mom was trying to get me to do this, and I was like, never going to do that.
Like a sabbatical? Like a break?
Yeah, exactly. She wanted me to take like 3 months off. Or like she wanted to take like 6 months off or something. But I think if I would have taken 3 months off and come back to it, maybe things would have turned around. Maybe not. I don't know for sure. But that's the only question mark I still have.
Were you just worried about like losing too much in that time? In terms of pace or...
I just wasn't convinced it would work, because I'd taken time off. It's not like I hadn't taken any breaks.
It makes so much sense, though, right? Like a 3-month break, it could potentially prolong your career by a couple of years.
Yeah, and then what do you do during that 3 months? I think if I would have done what I did, essentially, maybe not try to put on so much muscle, but get into the gym, still be active and do things to give back to your body, because running is it's real catabolic at the level that we're doing it at,
Yeah.
Like for people who aren't trying to be world class, you can run at a very healthy level and still train hard, right? But for us, we are right on the edge of overtraining all the time for years and years and years. To pull back from that and give back to your body for a longer period of time, I think could be really helpful. So, for people who are struggling and just can't seem to turn the ship around, that's what I would suggest they do is take 3 months off, eat a lot of food, put on some weight, put on some, not just muscle, put on a little bit of fat. Don't be afraid. When you're running real light all the time, it's really, really hard on your body. I mean, every time I tested my testosterone when I was running, it was clinically low. My T levels were 100. like really, really low. Like I should have been on something just from a health perspective, you know? Obviously we couldn't take anything because, you know, we're being tested by USADA. But now, look at me now, I'm 40 years old. So I was 27, my testosterone is 100. Now I'm 40, my testosterone is 1,000.
Wow.
And not taking anything. Just eating well, sleeping well, doing the weightlifting that I'm doing, and I'm training super hard still. You know, I lift every single day. I run most days, do some type of like cardio most days, and so still like training real hard, and yet in such a healthier place, right? Because I'm where my body wants to be.
Yes.
Whereas like I should be 160 pounds, just a normal dude walking around, but I had to walk around at 140 pounds, 137 pounds, way under the weight that I should have been. Whereas like someone like my wife, Sarah, she's naturally like right around her marathon race weight. So her weight doesn't need to fluctuate a lot, and she's in a healthy place the whole time because she's where her body wants her to be. So that's something also for people to keep in mind. It's like, where's my natural set point?
Yeah,
and then the goal is not to look like someone else or to look like a Kenyan, you know.
Well, you're sitting in front of me now, and you look healthy and well, and you definitely look better now than what you were when you were running those incredible times that we talked about before.
Yeah, I mean that's how you knew you were fit, is when you look kind of sick. Like
It's not great.
Everyone knew that. Like if someone told you, like, dude, your face is looking really gaunt. You
You
were like, yes, I did it. I mean, I was in Ethiopia training for this race one year. And I was buying some groceries at the grocery store in Addis, and the checkout lady, she told me, she's like, you need to eat more food. And I was like, if someone in Ethiopia is telling you need to eat more food, you've probably taken it too far. And it was so specific, though. It's crazy to me how specific weight plays into our sport. 137 pounds, I'm golden. 135 pounds, I raced this race at 135. I was weak, no good, terrible results. If I'm 140 pounds, not competitive, not going to be in it. It's that specific. We're talking about a couple of pounds difference, and it's a factor in our sport. So it's not like you can just, I'm just going to not pay attention to it. Like you have to, at the world-class level, to try to run with the best guys in the world, it has to be something that you are monitoring, that you are aware of.
Yeah.
But you got to know how to keep your body in a healthy place, because if you have an unhealthy spot for too long, it's going to break down, and you're going to have problems.
Yeah. Now I know your faith is massively important to you, and it has been, and you've got a rock solid marriage with Sarah. But still, like it must have been a rough time. Like here you are, Ryan Hall, the runner. It's sort of like what defines you, and your body was telling you couldn't do it anymore. Dark days.
I thought they would be.
Yeah.
I was scared to retire. I was always, when I was in it and I was running, I was like, man, when I'm not doing this anymore, I don't know if I'm going to be okay, like mentally, because I was so into it. And I was like a dog with its bone, you take that bone away, I'll be like, what am I going to do all day long, But
Might have to get a job.
Yeah, I have to get a real job. But actually something that, I'm big into prayer, and at one point I remember just praying and just asking God for just perspective on my situation. I was in an airplane and I was looking out and I was thinking about how like God just has this different perspective than we have. When you're the one down in the mess seems real big. When you're up above it, you're like, oh, it's not that bad,
Yeah.
So I was just asking for just kind of some perspective, and I felt like he was just telling me it wasn't meant to last forever. And it's not meant to last forever for anyone. And that's what makes it so beautiful, It's like we get these brief seasons, these brief glimpses where we get to go experience this really cool thing. But what makes it special is that it's not infinite, it doesn't last forever.
But could you see that at the time, or is that just with hindsight and maturity? And
that was just what I needed at the time, to be able to let go and to not, I think what happens is when you're going through that and you're at the end of a pro running career like that and you can't figure it out, there's almost like shame and guilt involved in it, because you feel like you must have messed something up. You must have done something wrong. There must be some way to fix this problem. Like, what'd I do that was so stupid to get myself feeling like this? Like, what's wrong with me? Like, kind of a deal. But when I kind of got that word about it's not meant to last forever for anyone, it's not going to last forever for Kipchoge, not for one person, it kind of be like, gives you just a sense of peace, like, oh, that's okay. Like, I did what I was supposed to do for the season I was supposed to do it, and now it's on to the next season, So it kind of just gave me a lot of peace about it, and allowed me to just move into the next season kind of seamlessly. And honestly, when I retired, I just told Sarah for about a week, and I just tried it on. I was like, let me just try it out. My dad always told me to do that. He's like, before you make any big decision, just tell yourself what you're going to do for about a week. See if it feels good. See if it feels right. And it felt right, felt good. So then, we told people ASICs, and they made a video, and then it all kind of came out like a month later. But I had already decided like way before that video came out that I was done. And I felt like a lot of freedom, it allowed me to finally be removed from the struggle that I was in my career and be able to just look back at the Bostons and at the half and just be so thankful for those performances rather than trying to chase them and trying to get back to them.
Yeah. So what would you say is the biggest high and the biggest low of the running chapter of your life?
Oh, man. I had so many lows, it's really hard to pull out one of them.
Yeah, that's the funny thing about the sport, You do all this work and you train for these moments, and then the moment, more often than not, brings you like a low.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I'd have to say my biggest low had to be London Olympic Marathon.
Oh, is that the one where you pulled out? You had a hammy or something?
Yeah, that was the first time I ever dropped out of any race in my entire life. And that was just, I remember that when I first pulled off, I almost just started running again because I stopped and started walking and just felt so wrong. I was like, this feels all wrong. It's such a terrible feeling. But I knew I couldn't run. Like, I was like limping. My hamstring was really messed up. I was like, I'm going to just, walk on my hands and knees like 6 hours later or something like this. Not wise decision, And then I go from walking and then I got to walk over to the media. You got to talk to media, and you haven't figured it out. You haven't had time to process yourself. This thing just happened to you. You were hoping to just hit a really good day and nail this marathon, and all that just got shattered in an instant. And then you have a microphone right in front of you, and they're asking you how you're feeling. And, you're being honest, but you're also like, you're remembering there's little kids watching this. They're looking for like inspiration, And I think it is good to be honest and real, but you're always, I don't know, I was always trying to put a little bit of a positive spin on it.
Well, you're a positive guy. I think you're more a glass half full than glass half empty sort of guy. It's your disposition.
Yeah, I'm very optimistic in nature,
But when that happens, so you go back to your hotel room, you burst into tears. What do? You smash it up?
For me, it was
throw a TV out the window?
For me, it was almost always like, I don't know, almost like I got numb. Like I couldn't believe in disbelief that it happened at all, It was kind of weird, like, to be honest. And sometimes I would process like that. Like I'd go into my garage and have a punching bag in there and just punch that bag as hard as I can, I guess there were different ways. Oftentimes, to be honest, like I'd take it out on eating, because I'd be very particular about my diet, all of my training leading up to it. I'm going into this race at 137 pounds, like feeling like light but hungry all the time. When you're controlling your weight, like how I was controlling it, and I was as low as I was compared to where my natural set point was, I would, at 5 o'clock, I'm staring at my watch. I'm like, when do I get to eat dinner? I'm just starving. Like, you're just hungry all the time. I wake up in the middle of the night, just starving, super hungry, right? And I'd eat a snack, and then you're starving, and like, you're just hungry all the time. So that's a natural kind of thing. When the race is over and it doesn't go well, you're like, screw this, dude. So I remember after the London Marathon, I went to Cinnabon. That's like, I love cinnamon rolls. I can make some mean cinnamon rolls too, by the way. But I went to Cinnabon, and it's like right in like downtown London or whatever, and the Olympics are just closing up, and there's a million people out there, and I just got a big old cinnamon roll. I go out to the curb, and I'm just pounding this cinnamon roll.
Angry eating.
Yeah, but then I look over and I see this like girl like taking a picture of me on her phone. I was like, it's gonna be like on the tabloids or something.
Oh, it's so good. Oh yeah, because my running on a big week, I'll do like 60 miles, which is 100 k's in New Zealand, and I'll smash anything I want. And I'll tell people, this is when you run this much, you can eat whatever you want. Jeez, you make me feel bad now.
No, you can, but it wasn't just one cinnamon roll. One cinnamon roll is fine. It was like a 2-week bender.
Right,
okay,
right.
This was not like one meal, like a big meal. No.
So then after the running chapter is closed, like how long after that were you twiddling your fingers and thumbs watching Netflix before you discovered lifting?
There's no moments of that. It was straight into the gym.
Really?
Yeah. Next day. The first day I wasn't running, it was the first day I was in the gym. So I just went straight into it, and it was humbling too. I'll tell you something, like,
yeah, you would have been lifting the bar only at that point.
Yeah, exactly. I was super weak, like deadlifting like not even my body weight, 140 pounds, and it's just feeling heavy. But there was something about it that I loved, and it was the struggle. I loved it when I couldn't move the weight anymore. Like whatever movement I was doing, if I could get it like part way, and then I'd get stuck, and I'd have to like set it down or whatever,
Yeah.
And I just absolutely loved that. I loved not being able to be successful, and and I still do that to this day. Like I'm unsuccessful almost every single time I lift intentionally, There's something about the struggle of lifting that I just love. And I used to hate lifting before that, by the way. Like we were going to the gym 4 or 5 days a week. So I was doing stuff in the gym, but I hated it. I'd just try to get through it as quick as I can. And I was doing the wrong stuff, It's like doing the banded body weight stuff, which that stuff does have its place. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. But what most people are neglecting, most runners are neglecting, which is what I was neglecting, is the heavy lifting. Because you don't feel like doing it when you're tired and you're 137 pounds. You don't feel like getting under a heavy barbell. It freaking hurts the heck out of your shoulders and your traps. You have no traps to set it on. It's just real uncomfortable, But again, you have to be forced to do the things you don't want to do. That's how you get really good at things, So I wish I would have been lifting heavy back in the day. But I went from the guy who hated the gym, hurried through it, to the guy who was embarrassed to be in a gym when I first started out. I'd just wear my hat real low, and I wouldn't look at anyone. I'd just focus on what I was doing. And now I have like my own setup in my garage, so I still hardly ever go to a normal gym, but I just love it. I'm in there every day.
And you're massive now, and you do these weird challenges as well. I saw one online. Is it the wood chopping challenge? What was the wood chopping challenge?
Yeah, so that was about a year ago. I chopped a cord of wood at my house. I've always loved wood and splitting wood, and so
how much is a cord? Like enough to go on the back of a pickup truck, a ute, or
yeah, exactly. It's think of a pickup truck, but like loaded up, like 10 feet high with wood.
Wow.
So it's a decent amount of wood. Now I have my buddies helping to stack it, so I was just splitting it. They were stacking it, so that saved me a little time. So I did that in the morning at my house in Flagstaff, Arizona. We drove out to the Grand Canyon, and then I had these big 7-gallon water jugs. When they're full, they weigh almost 70 pounds. They're just under 70 pounds. And so I ran down with them empty to the bottom of the Grand Canyon. It's 10K. You drop 5,000 feet. And then I filled them up in the Colorado River at the bottom, and then I farmer carried them out. So just carry them for as long as I could take them, stop, rest, go again, stop, rest. It took 5 hours to carry them out from the bottom of the Grand Canyon to the top of the Grand Canyon. But it was like...
What for? Why?
Well, it was partially for fun. 'Cause I love doing that. So I would have done it for just fun factor alone. And I had like my little brother was out there shooting it. My friends were out there with me. Like the stars were blazing. The moon was out. And the Grand Canyon is just amazing. Like I just love the Grand Canyon. The views there are just insane. So it was just a super fun like challenge for me to do. And then we're also like raising money rather for clean water for people in need in Africa and stuff like that. So it did have that kind of charity component as well.
Oh, that's cool. And then so you retire from running, you're lifting for years, and then you go back to running again and you do the 7-7-7 challenge, 7 marathons in 7 days in 7 continents. This is when I started following you on Instagram, and it was refreshing to watch because you did no training for it, and you were bloody slow, and you weren't even bothered by it. Like I think most people, like former athletes of your level, would surely have that little bit of ego where you go, I don't want someone to see me do a 4-hour marathon or whatever, but you seem free of that.
Yeah, that's kind of the fun thing about not being a pro athlete is it's easier to let your ego go, So it's like I can go like run these trails and stuff, and like I don't care.
Nothing to prove anymore.
Yeah, like I started I ran the Grand Canyon a couple days ago. I started my watch. And then I never touched it again the whole time. We're stopping and doing stuff. And I think I accidentally stopped it. I have no record that I even ran it.
You enjoy running now? Do you just run for joy now? That was the name of one of your books, by the way.
Yeah. Now it's just pure fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I train to like have fun in the forest, but it's fun to be strong, be able to pull yourself up stuff, go I like on off trail. I know not a lot of people are fans of that, but like I do like treat the forest with respect, but I love just going deep into the mountains where no one else is, me and my buddy, and we'll just go out there and just be little kids in the forest, no shoes, no shirt, just playing in the forest.
How good. So talk us through that 777 challenge. So you get invited to do it by the organizer.
Yeah, I got invited by my friend who was a
Right.
pastor at the Dream Center Church in Los Angeles. And so he was going to do it to raise money for his church. And so I was friends with him. I was like, hey, like, I'd love to join you, you know, like, let me know if we can make it happen. And sure enough, like, he found a sponsor for me to do it with him. And then we were both raising money for the Dream Center, which they're an amazing church down in Los Angeles, just helping people off the streets, doing amazing stuff there. So it was cool to like have something besides just me doing this challenge. But the trip of a lifetime. I mean, our first marathon was in Antarctica, and then you're hopping in an airplane, you're flying. Funny enough, I flew around the world in a week. I didn't watch one movie, not one. Every single time I was on an airplane, I was asleep.
Yeah, because they hire a plane, right? So it's like a big private jet. How many athletes do it?
I think there's about 30 athletes that were doing it, and then they have like 5 or 6 staff, and they're not like official races. I mean, they measure
just
the course, but
sure.
loop courses out and backs or whatever. But I was so inspired just by the people on the trip, It's like there was one lady who was there. She has a tumor in her brain, and she's out doing this crazy challenge. There's people with like missing limbs and stuff, and everyone just had pretty incredible stories, So I love like the community aspect of that event. But it was really interesting to go from literally like I didn't do one run over 30 minutes leading up to it, and I was only running like maybe like 2 times a week or something, like 30-minute runs.
You're an idiot, eh? You must have known you were in for a week of hell.
Yeah, well, this was the debate I had in my head about 4 months before this challenge. I was like, I don't want to run. I don't want to train. I want to just lift. And so either I can enjoy my life and just lift leading up to this and have one kind of painful week, or I can like train for this thing, have a subpar like 3 or 4 months, and then have a better week. I was like, I'll take the first choice.
So what was your fastest time and what was your slowest time that week? Can you remember?
I don't remember the exact times, but they were around. It was really interesting. So I was actually getting in better shape as the week was going on. So my marathon times were coming down. So on day 5 in Morocco, I actually felt really good. It was crazy. I didn't understand it at all because day 4 in Spain, I felt terrible. I think.
So your body was just sort of adapting as you went along.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah.
I was getting a training effect from it. I couldn't believe it. I wasn't expecting to feel better. But day 5 in Morocco, I didn't break 3 hours, but I was like maybe like 3:06 or something, somewhere right in there. So I was getting quicker. I think my first one in Antarctica was like 3:30 or something. But the day before, day 4 in Spain, terrible. I was like, had the worst run, felt terrible. My buddy was there, and I was like, I hate running. Like I must have said that like 1,000 times. I was not having a good time. And then the next day in Morocco, I felt amazing. So I started out real slow in that one, but then by the end, like I was charging, like I was running fast. And so I was getting excited. I was like, okay, day 6 in Dubai. I was like, I'm going to keep getting quicker, And I still wasn't like the fastest guy on the trip. Like Mike Wardian was there and he was running like
he's sub 3 every day, right?
Yeah, he was running
crazy.
good, putting out some good times and stuff. So, I wasn't like being competitive with anyone but myself. But I was like, I'm going to run fast. But then I was walking in Morocco to get dinner after we finished that race. And all of a sudden I just felt a little bit of pain in my hip. I was like, that's weird. Like that pain feels, I kind of recognize it because I'd had a stress reaction before. It's this kind of like take your breath away kind of pain, So I was like, maybe it's nothing, maybe it's fine. There's always like little niggles that pop up in running, I'll just work through it. But then day 5 in Dubai, I was like, oh, I'm in trouble. Like I ran the first half and then walked most of the second half of that race because I was in a lot of pain. And I don't remember what my time was there, but it had to be over 4 hours for sure. And then we flew to Sydney for the last marathon. I tried to stand up after laying down and sleeping, and I felt like someone just shot me in the hip with a gun. I was like, I'm in big trouble. But you don't run 6 marathons in 6 days on 6 continents and then DNF the last one,
Absolutely not.
You find a way to get it done. So that last marathon in Sydney it was amazing experience though. I was right on, I think Manly Beach.
Yeah, Manly Beach.
Yeah, and I was just doing a mile out and back. That was the course that day. That night, we did it at night. The moon's out, the waves are crashing down, and I was just walking back and forth for a mile for the whole marathon. It took me well over 5. I was thinking it was like 5.5 hours maybe. And funny enough, Mike Wardian, who was running under 3, he finishes his marathon. Then he's doing a long cool down afterwards, and he comes and joins me for a couple of miles. I was going too slow even for his cool down, but he was like doing a 17-mile cool down so he could hit a 200-mile week that week.
He's a savage.
Yeah.
He's a savage. And then at the finish line, you took your shoes off and left them on the line, which was, how did that feel? That must have been kind of a poignant sort of moment.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was funny because, like I said, these aren't big races, right?
Yeah.
So there's 10 people at the finish line or something, it's not a big deal. But, after a week like that, I knew I was going to do this, right? Because this is what wrestlers do in the Olympics. After they know it's their last wrestling match, they just leave their shoes on the mat and they walk away barefoot. And it's kind of your way of saying, I left it all out there. There's nothing left. I'm moving on to the next season. And I think it's important for athletes and people to have something physically that you do that marks the end of a season. And for me, it was leaving my shoes there. And so I remember I was like, but in my mind, it wasn't going to be a big deal. I was like, just leave my shoes there, walk away. That's it. No big deal. But I left my shoes there, got down on my knees and took them off and walked away. And I almost started crying as I was walking away by myself, back to the hotel, because it was whoa, yeah, it's really over now. I got to say goodbye to the sport that I love, though, and it was, I'm really glad that I had the opportunity to do that, because a lot of people don't, you run your last race, you always think you're going to come back and run another one, and things just don't work out, and then you just drift off into the next thing, where I got to, have a really cool way to say goodbye to the sport that gave me so much and brought so much fullness to my life. And it's kind of full circle too, because my first run was that big 15-mile run around the lake, that challenge, big, long, hard challenge I started with, and I finished with the 7 marathons, 7 days, 7 continents. A real big way to finish it out too.
And you seem like a guy that loves being in discomfort, so perfect.
I do. I crave it.
Hey, can we talk about your family for a little bit? Because this is a remarkable part of I think, Ryan Hall and Sarah Hall story. So you guys, first of all, talk about this in as much or as little detail as you want. Maybe you don't want to talk about it at all, but did you guys try and have your own biological kids?
We had always just wanted to adopt. Yeah. Ever since our first date, actually, Sarah, she told me, she's like, yeah, I've always wanted to adopt ever since I was a little girl. She drew a picture of her with a lot of different colored nationality kids or whatever. And that was a moment where for me, it just struck me. I was like, oh, I've never even thought about adoption. I never saw it. She saw it she had family and friends who had adopted before, so she was just around it a lot, so she was exposed to it. But me, I hadn't been until that moment on our first date, and that was really that's when I started chewing on it, mulling on it myself. So then when the time came that, hey, we felt ready to have kids, adoption just was what we always wanted to do, and it makes a ton of sense too for pro runners, right? It's for women, it's you get pregnant, have a kid, you lose 9 months of your career as well. Yeah. So yeah. So why Ethiopia? Yeah, because you adopted 4 sisters from Ethiopia. Yeah, why Ethiopia? I know they've got a massive orphan problem there. Something like 4 million orphans and orphanages around the place. Yeah, exactly. So one of my favorite parts about running is we get to go train wherever we want, So we'd been all over the world racing and training. And so when you travel that much, you realize how there's certain places that just kind of grab you, You're just like, oh man, this just feels like my kind of people, my kind of place. There's just something special about this place that just grabs you. And Ethiopia was always like that for Sarah and I. There's just something about it that we just love, the culture, the people, the land, the training, everything about it, the dancing, the food, But you do see, you walk around Addis on the streets and kids come up to you and want to shine your shoes for 5 cents, and they're stoked when you pay them double. You pay them 10, they're running off to all their friends, hey, I got 10 cents, But it just breaks your heart. You're like, man, what's going to happen to this kid? How's he can get himself out of the situation? So you want to do something, right? And so, we have our own foundation, the Hall Steps Foundation, and that's just because just everyone's just got to do a little bit of something, and then we can take care of these problems that we have in the world. I really believe that. So for us, it was seeing all these kids on the street, we can't totally fix the problem ourselves, but we can take our step, And so we decided we wanted to adopt from Ethiopia, and then we were just going to adopt an infant kid. That was always, our plan. That's what most people start with.
Yeah, well, there's been so many studies done about nurture versus nature, and how something like 80% of a brain development is done in the first 1,000 days or 3 years. So I suppose people will think that'll be the easiest option. Just get a kid that's not pre-programmed.
Yeah, and
was that your intention initially?
Yeah, we wanted to just be a part. Yeah, and you want to experience it too as a parent. You want to see what it's like to have that tiny little kid and hold them. So I get it. I don't like slight people for adopting infants or for wanting to have infants. It's great. But what we saw is visiting the orphanage, we were like number 76 on a waiting list to adopt an infant, and that waiting list was barely moving at all. We would have never got an infant, because they ended up closing down international adoption. But when we were there, we were visiting these orphanages, and we saw all these older kids just waiting for families. We're like, this doesn't make sense. We're waiting for an infant. They're waiting for families. And after playing with the kids, interacting with the kids, like they're such great kids. We're like, man, we'd like adopt any one of these kids in a second. So we did that. We went home, we changed all of our paperwork up, and jumped through a whole bunch of hoops. Like in adoption, they call it being paper pregnant, because you got to just do so much paperwork. And so it was insane how hard it is to adopt. It's hard. They make it hard on you,
Yeah.
But yeah,
you guys had to do 4 times the paperwork.
Yep. Yeah, we did. But yes, we decided we wanted to adopt kids, and then we became aware of girls, these 4 sisters, and it was just them. There's their whole family, just the sisters. And
do you know? What's the backstory? What happened to the parents?
Yeah, we kind of let the kids tell the story if they want. So I try not to get too much into that. But yeah, they had no other option though.
Right.
Like they weren't safe in their village where they were, no parents. So like
it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, they were in a really tough situation. So yeah, we decided that we were going to adopt our kids. Well, actually, it wasn't that simple. We wanted to give them choice in the matter, because like usually kids are adopted and they don't have any choice. Like these parents roll up and like, hey, you're coming with us.
Lucky you.
yeah. And so we went to the orphanage, and we kind of just like pretended like we were there playing with all the kids or whatever. And we were there playing with all the kids. So I guess we weren't pretending, but really like we knew like we were gonna ask these girls if they wanted to join our family, but we wanted them to just get to know us as normal people first, not potential parents, So I'll never forget, after about a week of just hanging out with all the kids in the orphanage, we brought in our girls, and we asked through a translator, asked them if they wanted to join our family, and we had told them about ourselves, and they knew about us and stuff. And I'll never forget their reaction. They all just like started screaming and crying, and they were like so excited. We were all in tears, But I think that was really important for them to feel like we were not only choosing them, but they were also choosing us in the process. And that was...
That sounds like an episode of X Factor when they get told they're going to boot camp or something.
I know, right?
So what were the age ranges at the time?
So at the time, they were 5, 7, 11, and 15. So, yeah, and they were all...
How long had they been there?
They had been in the orphanage for 3 years, and they were having a hard time finding a family for them. So they were talking about splitting up the girls, so sending 2 to one family and 2 to another family. And I grew up in the middle of 5 kids, and so I know, like, I couldn't imagine being split up from my siblings.
Yeah.
And they're talking about splitting them to different countries. It's like they're probably never going to see each other again. I was like, I couldn't imagine doing that. And so I was like, no, that's not okay with me.
That's a really cool. I know you guys didn't do it for the kudos or anything, but it's a really cool thing you've done.
Yeah, well, there's amazing kids.
Yeah.
Like we feel like we've gotten super blessed, super lucky to have them as our kids now, because they're not standard kids. It's like I was out doing a photo shoot with 10,000 down in Sedona just 2 days ago, and I was trying to rush to get there to pick up my daughter from school, and my 19-year-old daughter who drives, she had already gone and picked up Lily without even like texting me or telling me. She just knew that I wasn't going to make it and went and picked her up. So like they do stuff like that all the time where I'm like, you guys aren't normal kids. They're really special.
So did they have English as a second language, or was it just
They didn't know any English coming
Right.
over here. Never been to school before. So you can imagine it was a real challenge, especially for the older ones, you know. Our younger two now, they've forgotten Amharic, unfortunately. We were trying to have them retain that because we do go back all the time. We were just there training for this race and visiting Ethiopia. But they've forgotten Amharic. But the older two, you know, their English is really good. One is at GCU, Grand Canyon University in college. And then our other daughter, she's going to NC State next year. They both run, so they're doing great. Amazing to me because when I go over to Ethiopia, like me speaking Amharic, it's so hard. Like my Amharic is so terrible. So I couldn't imagine getting plopped into an Amharic speaking school in Addis and trying to survive. But they've been able to pull it off, and they're doing great. They're
So
thriving.
what do they know about America, or what do they make of it when they come? All I can think of is the Eddie Murphy movie, Coming to America.
Right. Well, what's funny is, so they grew up out in the sticks, no TV, no cars, no nothing, right? Never seen a white person or anything. Like they're out in the sticks. Like they grew up throwing rocks at monkeys to like keep them away from their like cattle and stuff like that. They have rocket arms though, all of them. They can throw because they're ever since they're little kids. Yeah, I know. I was thinking that. We actually had one of our daughters try the javelin. But what happened is then they, you know, came to the orphanage, and then the orphanage, they had TV. And so they started watching all these Disney movies and stuff, which was good because it's exposing them to English and stuff. But they also got exposed to a lot of American stuff. So we were actually surprised. They weren't super shocked by a lot of things when they came back to the States because they'd seen a lot of it already on TV. But we also couldn't talk to them super well because they only knew Amharic. We knew limited Amharic, although Sarah's Amharic was pretty good. And but yeah, they were it was all pretty. I remember there was one moment we were in an elevator. We walked in an elevator. This was actually in Addis, and I knew they were gonna freak out because I knew they had never been in an elevator before. Imagine you walk into this room, this door closes behind you. You're in this little box. You press this button, and then all of a sudden it drops. They were like, yeah, they just lost it in this elevator.
I can only imagine. Like, when I was a kid, I was petrified of escalators in malls, like getting on them and getting off them. I can't imagine like navigating one of them for the first time when you're 15, 16 years old. It's crazy.
Yeah, I'm sure there was more of those that we didn't even know about. Like I think like the hand dryer thing got them a little bit. So there's a couple things for sure.
So what are their ages now?
So now our oldest is 22, and then we have 19-year-old, 15, and then 12. Yeah.
And they call you mum and dad?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And that was actually one of the cool things, you know, from someone who never even thought about adoption, how normal it's all felt. Like even being, you know, a biracial family, like I never even. I don't feel it or think about it, or it's not on my radar, you know. I mean, there's moments where I'm sensitive to it, you know, especially when it's, you know, trying to explain to them things that are happening in America that have to do with race and stuff, like trying to do a good job of talking to them about those things. But just how normal it's felt and organic it's felt for both of us, you know, for us and for the girls, has been really cool and really kind of a surprising thing. I always thought I'd just walk around and be like, whoa, I can't believe like these are my kids. But it was like right away, it was like, yeah, mom, dad, this is my daughter. Like I don't even think about it. But, you know, sometimes we still get, you know, people who think like my daughter's my wife or something like that. We'll get things, and I have to like go through security, be like, yes, these are my daughters, you know. So we have.
So the eldest, who you said is 22 now, is she sort of like I suppose a mum figure in a way to the others as well? Because I guess I just think when they're in that orphanage for those years, I suppose that was her sort of defunct role.
The older two, for sure, definitely like watch out for them a lot. Especially actually Mia, our second oldest. She'll just come home, start cleaning the house, start making food, like because you know in Ethiopia, it's like even though she was really small at the time, that's what she was doing. Like she was running the show at her house, helping with all the chores. And so, you know, kids who grow up in that atmosphere then come here definitely aren't used to the like mom and dad doing everything for you. Sometimes we call her Mama Mia sometimes because she'll just be doing all the mom things. You're like, Mom, you don't have to be mom right now. We got this.
Oh, I love that. Hey, thanks so much for your time today. It's been fantastic to sit down with you and pick your brains and share some of these stories. We talked about your life before being in chapters like the running chapter and the weightlifting chapter, and I suppose a shorter chapter, but a chapter nonetheless, the dad chapter. What do you think's next? Well, you just don't know.
I don't know, and I like not knowing, actually, you know? Like, I think that's what makes... I'm learning to embrace the beautiful mystery of life, you know? Like, I don't know what's coming down the line, and I love that. And I know it's going to change and evolve, you know. So I'm just trying to get better at like adapting as I go and just embracing things for what they are. You know, it's like even for Sarah in this marathon, it's like we have no idea how Monday is going to play out, you know. But if you're going through it looking for things to be grateful for and looking for the blessings, you're going to find them. But if you're going through it like this has to happen for me to be happy, I have to hit this time, I have to hit this goal, I have to beat this person, and a lot of these things are outside your control, like it makes it hard to be happy in life when you're living like that. So just trying to kind of like change how I navigate life and be more like the stream that can just roll with
flow like the water.
It just rolls with anything. You just roll down anything.
Yeah, well, I saw a quote on Instagram. It said something like, happiness needs to be where you are now. It can't be something you're chasing, because if you're chasing it, you're never going to get it.
No, never going to get there. Pot of gold.
Ryan Hall, the fastest American man ever, over half. Oh, by the way, will you be sad if or when those records are broken? How will that feel?
No, I'm hoping I can coach one of my athletes to break it. I have this guy, B.S. Mbassa, who I'm coaching right now, American guy. He's already run 60 minutes for the half, and I'm like, dude, when are we going to break this thing? Let's go. I'm ready. So I'm excited. You know, we need to take this thing to the next level. It's always, you know, my ceiling is meant to be other people's floors. We're meant to take this thing higher. So no, I'm ready to kiss that record goodbye.
Yeah. And if he does it in the new shoes, you can go, well, you didn't have you had the I didn't have the shoes. I had bendy shoes.
Exactly. Picture me on Instagram bending my shoes.
They're so solid now, eh? They're so firm.
Yeah, it's so different.
Yeah, well, Ryan Hall, I know you're itching to get to the gym right now. By the way, what is it today? What are you doing?
So today's I'm changing up my splits a little bit. So today's a push day. So let's go push, pull.
Right.
So a little bit upper body, a little bit lower. But today's actually, push day. So I'll do a little chest, do a little tricep, shoulder, something with my quad, something with my calves. But honestly, how I like to do now, I just walked into the gym and I'm going to do all pushing movements, but I'm like, what am I craving today? What sounds like fun? What do I have available? Because I'm being in this hotel gym. We'll see what they got up there. Actually, I already know what they got because I've used it a bunch. But that's good, though. You know, being creative. Again, being water, being able to flow with what you have, I think it makes it more fun.
I love it. Hey, so good to meet you. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate you being on the podcast. Runners Only with Dom Harvey. Ryan Hall.
Thanks, Dom.